liberalization is an element that has to be taken with a pinch of salt. It's good to open the economy up. There are challenges that will definitely come, and through challenges, competition, which you alluded to earlier, will take the front seat, and the outcome will be improved productivity.
Okay, because Mohammed actually mentioned that it's not as if that these global policies that they bring up wouldn't work, but on your domestic front, how good are your policies? How sound are your policies for you to still incorporate what has been, mentioned at such, big forums like what we had at the in Bali, Indonesia, for instance? Now, let's bring it home. Are the right policies in place to ensure that these other policies that we take from the global table work for our own good as well, so that we're not shortchanged? Because he mentioned that it's not that China and India and the rest of it, they don't have domestic policies, that they readily take on those global policies when they come, but then they somehow put it to good use and everybody is happy.
Yeah, the best lesson to be drawn from being party to this global trade arrangement is you are forced to discipline your system. Over the years, we played along in the global arena without going along with the discipline required to be a big player. For more than 20 years, we have been challenged, practically brought down by infrastructure challenges. Our power is still weak. The roads network are bad for logistics. The economies we are talking about, China and India, commit strongly to developing their infrastructure, and that makes either manufacturing or service provision in their economies to be very, very efficient and competitive. But you can't sign on to the global trade policy and neglect to make the elements within your system. Governance is critical. The taxes you have to pay, you don't pay beyond that. Your imports come, they don't spend 2 months at the ports. Your banking system is disciplined to do that which banking is expected to provide an economy. Contracts are awarded based on competitive bidding. And of course,
so I know most people are going to ask this question. In fact, that's like, a heated argument in most places. Is it really necessary for Nigeria to be part of these organizations? If we haven't begun to set our home front right, why be part of such global organizations that have policies, because they make those policies based on what they have on ground? They have infrastructure, they have the right environment for investors and players alike to do their business. So is it right for Nigeria to continue to be in most of these organizations, or should we pull out? When we set our house right, then we can begin to think again about joining any of these organizations.
Every economy has the choice of decision. Nigeria as a country has a choice to say no, we don't want to be part of it. We can even come closer home, because we talk of WTO, it's global and wide. A lot of people may not appreciate the implications. But within the ECOWAS region where we play, we are the big nation within ECOWAS. There have been arguments, what is Nigeria doing in ECOWAS? Because within ECOWAS too, there's trade liberalization. And we're surrounded by small economies that are satellites around Nigeria. Nigeria could pull out of ECOWAS. But the way the world is moving today, no economy or country can remain an island. You can say, okay, because we neglect to do that which is right, I want to protect our economy, and you put tariff, for example, at 60-70%. And the same consignment you're trying to protect, land in Cotonou or Niger Republic or Burkina Faso for 10 or 5%. The immediate and first challenge will be import surge in the neighboring countries. Fully knowledgeable that the imports will finally land in Nigeria. The customs organization is challenged. We have confessed and accepted we are not strong enough to protect our borders. So what government is trying to protect will be ab initio a failure, because we will not be able to stop these imports from coming into the system. I think the lesson of being part of the global trade arrangement is to be disciplined, to install a disciplined economy. And that means employ or engage best practices in the management of your economy.
Now,
that which is right to be done, no matter how tough it might be,
needs to be done.
needs to be done.
So has the export expansion grant been fully restored by the government, and is it really impacting on exports development in any way?
At the start, yes, the EEG, the export expansion grants, have done a wonderful job to increase all export. But the challenge with it, which is also a reflection of the part of challenges we have in managing the economy, is the stop and go policy adopted in managing the EEG. It's done for 6 months. Suddenly, you get an announcement that has been suspended or it's been reduced without prior warning to the exporters. This dents the image of Nigerian export in international markets, because from the global export market, the picture is that Nigeria is not a reliable country to deal with. You can enter into a contract, and within 3 months of that contract, the entire outline of the contract has been torpedoed.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, if you don't mind. The issue of the export expansion grant actually even goes beyond whether it's suspended or reduced.
Okay.
It even has a problem of utilization. Because when you give a grant, the result is supposed to help your cash flow by giving you some certificates which you are supposed to use to import goods, to pay for customs duties when you're importing your goods. Of course, we have a situation now where the customs say, hey, we cannot use this again because it is impacting on the cash flow of the customs. You know, and about 2 weeks ago or so, you know, we had a forum with the Minister of Finance, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala, and I was suggesting to her in particular that, okay, if you don't want to use the certificates for the purpose of paying customs, why can't we expand the usage? Let people use it to pay their tax, for example. Because it's all government situation.
Yeah.
You've given me a certificate which is supposed to be cash. I'm supposed to use it to pay my customs when I import goods. I go now to pay customs, say they cannot honor it. But here I am, I owe you tax. Why can't I use that certificate?
Now, so what was the minister's response to this?
Well, the minister's response is that she's going to look into it.
Well, that's
You know?
it's good. It's a good one, because you see, a lot of times, most of these decisions when they are taken, they're taken without having the key players on the table. And so, when these decisions eventually come out, everybody begins to complain that we weren't carried along, like we've seen in some other sectors. Now, we're looking at the most urgent things that should be addressed going forward. You know, just before that, how would this the delay of the budget being passed, how will it affect a sector like manufacturing?
Well, when budgets are delayed, the implication is that there will be no growth recorded in release of funds, which implies that activities will remain at status quo, where they were in the outgoing year. This is becoming a recurring decimal in our economic management, and it doesn't portend good for the economy, because the signal it gives out is that everybody applies the brake in spending, and once the brake is applied in spending, consumption dips.
Okay,
And
so
once you do consumption,
it affects the manufacturing.
once you do consumption, people are extremely careful. Once you do consumption, it impacts immediately on production capacity in the manufacturing sector.
But the demand level, of course, is low.
It's low.
Yes.
So that's not a very interesting situation for anybody. So what 3 urgent things should the federal government begin to examine now in preparation for 2014 to ensure that the mistakes done this year are not repeated next year? It's not like the challenges that or the situation is any different. For instance, we're hoping that the power sector, the power situation will improve, as well as infrastructure and the rest of it. So those are the challenges that we know we're going to be taking into next year. But realistically and objectively, looking at what we have to work with now, what can we expect for 2014 for the manufacturing sector?
Well, stability in macro indices is critical. We fared very well in 2013. It should be sustained to the new year. Every effort should be made that the takeover of the power distribution and generation is made perfect, because this is where quite a lot of strong hopes lie, that it's not going to be business as usual. If government is able to sustain this, then renewed confidence will come. One thing I've always, the last 2000 to 2009, if you look at all the data available, this economy is driven largely by domestic investment. But on the other hand, we've exerted quite a lot of energy on foreign direct investment, which is really not coming, except in a few sectors. So there's the urgent need for government to steady the confidence of domestic investors. Let's do our best to sustain existing investment, and in doing this, it's important that domestic debts are addressed.
Okay, like Mohammed, from the private sector perspective, because we're really fast spent for time, from the private sector perspective, how can the private sector actually help the government to achieve to boost the manufacturing sector?
Yeah, I think I will start from the point he made on power.
Still power.
We've just finished the privatization of the key sectors of power, especially generation and distribution. But the most critical issue in power is transmission.
Okay.
That is still in the hands of government.
No problem.
So my appeal will be for government to tenaciously ensure that whatever needs to be done to stabilize transmission is done. Because even if you generate all the power in the world and you are so efficient at distribution, once transmission is not on ground, it's a big problem.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me this morning on the program. It's been a pleasure having you. The Acting Director General, Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Rasheed Adegbenro, thank you so much for joining us. And Mohammed Yunusa, Group Managing Director of Dunlop Nigeria PLC. Thank you also for joining us this morning. Well, that's the program for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Harriet Agbeni. Enjoy the holidays.